Insulin resistance. That's probably something you're really not looking forward to be having this year. And I've been wondering, what actually is insulin resistance? What's causing it? How is it interconnected within our bodies? And one thing which I've mentioned in some other episodes is that insulin resistance or insulin's insensitivity is a natural thing to happen to us perimenopausal ladies. It's just a fact. You can deny it, you can breathe through it, you can meditate through it, but on a cellular level, it's still going to happen. It's still going to happen. There's no remedy for that because that's just how our body is naturally progressing. And why is that? It's one of the reasons is that we're developing this insulin insensitivity and possibly even insulin resistance is because our dropping and lowering and continuously lower levels of estrogen. And that has an effect on our sensitivity towards insulin. If we have low estrogen, that implies that will affect within our body physically that our resistance towards insulin will increase. And what does that mean? The ability to utilize energy, the ability for our blood vessels to expand and to contract. In men, it's found, there's studies which have really very thoroughly done research on erectile dysfunction. And you might think, oh, that's a lifestyle thing and there should be more research on the women and why is it always the men and their erections. You might be thinking that, and that's totally fair, and it needs to be considered that fact is that there are studies out there which have identified that even in otherwise young healthy men, that having erectile dysfunctions can be an indicator of developing insulin insensitivity and insulin resistance as they continue to grow older, which then can have an effect on them developing type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular diseases or other really diseases which are not wanted but are still happening. So erectile dysfunction is not just a lifestyle thing and it's not so fun in the bedroom. It really is a health topic. And if that, like insulin insensitivity or insulin resistance, has an effect on erectile function or not function, what does it actually mean? It means for the cells, for the blood vessels to be expanding to a certain limit, and then also to be able to flex back. And that's not just happening in the male genitals, it's happening everywhere within our blood vessels. So being able to have flexible blood vessels which can expand and contract, that's a healthy thing to be in for men and for women. Because being insulin resistant means that our blood vessels cannot expand that easily. And on top of that, there's other factors, especially in us perimenopausal and postmenopausal women, that have also effects on our blood vessels and also on our heart, that they get constricted. Like they're in a tight jacket in a way. And one part is collagen. And you might be thinking, collagen? Wait, I'm supplementing collagen. I want to have beautiful skin. Yes, collagen can be beneficial. Do your research on that. I'm not an expert on that, but I know that collagen together with glucose, especially collagen together paired with glucose in our heart, causes our heart to be constricted. It can pump, but it cannot pump and move as flexibly, as smoothly as it actually wants to be. It's more like, okay, I'm pumping, but there's a restraint, and that restraint is a mixture of collagen combined paired with glucose. So that's the heart, but also our blood vessels, going back to that. Insulin has an effect on how they can expand and how they can contract. So that can have an effect. Yes, so we've had insulin resistance. Our cells, whether it's our muscle cells, our brain cells, or fat tissue, they're not able to let the glucose enter and be stored or utilized. So that's impaired. For the energy to enter the muscles or the fat tissue or the brain cells, it needs even louder bouncers, louder messages of insulin, meaning increased levels of insulin in our blood, which on the other hand are not good. I mean, insulin is very good, but if we continue to increase the levels of insulin in our blood, that can have an effect, as I mentioned, on cardiovascular or our neurological functions are functioning or not, or are impaired. So it's really, one thing is happening and it's tripling down and tickling down into the entire system. What more? Yes, what more? Another thing is, and it's not just with regard to insulin, it's with regard to dopamine, it's with regard to all those stimulators, cortisol, you name it. If our cells are constantly receiving a knock on the door or a bang on the door or a smash on the door telling them to do something, after a while they will just say, no. I mean, just think back when you were a kid and your mom or your dad were constantly nagging, telling you to do stuff, or your brother or your sister or your friends, whoever. And all this constant nagging, probably after a while you didn't even hear it anymore, because in here and out there and forgotten already. And that's the same with our cells. If we constantly get nagged by cortisol, by dopamine, by insulin, they will just say, continue your nagging. I'm not going to listen. I'm going to do something else. And that's what's going to happen. So the higher levels of insulin we have, the higher messages trying to be sent to the cells to open up the gates and utilize and store the glucose. And yet the cells will become less sensitive, and possibly even not sensitive at all anymore. So that's really, really, really not good. So we had the lowered levels of estrogen, which can affect our insulin sensitivity. But there's many other factors. Also our stress level, cortisol levels, they also affect our insulin levels, because cortisol tells our body we're in an emergency state. Well, not really, because we have heightened levels of cortisol every morning. It's the get up and go hormone, so it's really good. And it releases energy and it's preparing us to utilize energy. Yet if we don't utilize the energy, if we just get out of bed, have breakfast, sit at a computer for 8 hours, maybe get up once to go to the loo or twice, and then get back to the computer and not move, not utilize that energy. I mean, of course, our brain is a very hungry organ too, so our brain is utilizing energy. But our bones, our muscles, the entire rest of our system, our digestive tract, they're just thinking, well, what should we do? What should we do? We're ready, but we cannot go. It's like a racehorse in the, what it's called, in the cabin. And it's wanting to run, it's wanting to race, but we do not let it run and race. So that's the thing which happening with cortisol. If we have high cortisol and we're not moving enough or not having enough strength, utilizing exercises, because simply walking, you need to go for a very long walk to really lower your cortisol. It's not just going to happen in 10 minutes, but 10-minute, 30-minute high intensive training, that can help to really use that energy and to lower your cortisol levels. But again, circling back, heightened levels of cortisol have an impact on our insulin levels. Why? Because cortisol is like the get up and go and the fight or flight together with adrenaline. And these hormones tell our body, we need to be preparing, we need to be ready now, a second ago, because we need to fight or flight and we need energy. And so that's our biological system for our body to say, oh, cool, yeah, you're ready, we can run, we can fight, we can survive, and we are readily accessing our glucose in the blood, because that's the easiest, the quickest energy which we can access. So high insulin or high cortisol levels trigger high insulin levels, which then tells the cells, here's glucose, use it because we need it now. So that's actually a good thing. But again, if we have too high levels of cortisol and too high levels of insulin, we might be desensitized. And constant levels of high cortisol without the turning it into something else is not good. It's not good. It's just not as good as having chocolate cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It might be good for one of these, but having it constantly, you really get sick of it. Just as too high cortisol levels constantly are really not good. We need that. Same with the yin yang. We need one, we need the transition from one to the other. And same with the bones. It's building and destructing. It's building and destruction. Our body, our entire body is not meant to grow. I mean, we do that while we're children, while we're teenagers, until we've grown into the size and shape which we are. And yes, we might continue growing and expanding to a certain degree and get a little more fat, a little more muscles, a little more smart, whatever we're growing into. But our body is also set that it will break down. And that's a good thing. It's a really good thing. Like our blood lining, the lining in our blood vessels, that's getting replenished or renewed every 4 to 7 days. Like every 4 to 7 days. Whereas this fat cell, for example, can survive, can live for 10 years. So it's wow, that's an entire lifespan just between various cells in our bodies. So it needs to be able to deconstruct and to repair, and not only growing. Just imagine that our blood cells, the vessels, or the epithelial cells in our blood vessels, that they would continue to grow with all the stuff in the blood, with all the nutrition, with all the toxins, with all the glucose, with all the whatever there is in the blood. If those cells wouldn't renew frequently, they will get really sick, and not good for our blood flow, not good for our entire system. So it's important to build and destruct, but lots of that building and destruction cycle during perimenopause and beyond is impeded. So we had lower levels of estrogen, we had increased levels of cortisols, and there's many reasons why our cortisol levels, especially during perimenopause and beyond, are increasing naturally, physically, chemically, biologically, not just because we're simply more stressed now and can't deal with it anymore. That's a reason for that. So estrogen, cortisol have an effect on our insulin sensitivity. In addition to that, sleep, how we sleep or not, has an effect on our insulin levels. So those are pretty common. It also can have an effect, and that's not so commonly known. Maybe you know, cool, maybe you don't. Also cool, then you're learning something. Air quality. Like, is the air where you live, is it healthy? If it's not, if it's really high in pollution, fine dust, other particles, it can have an impact on your insulin sensitivity. And it can lead to insulin insensitivity and insulin resistance. There's studies out there which are showing that. And me living in Berlin and being blessed with having blue skies very often, unless it's a cloudy day, but there's not much air pollution. The air pollution here in Berlin, it's mostly because of the cars, of factories, and chimneys. Some people are having chimneys and they're burning wood or coal to warm and to have a cozy apartment. But those are mostly the factors. There's many other regions on this planet where air quality is really bad, like really bad. And they cannot just do it because they're impacted by other countries and their air qualities. For example, I love South Korea, and I've spent a longer time again and again in South Korea. And one thing which really struck me was not so many blue skies. I really, when I came back to Germany, I was so grateful to be seeing blue sky regularly, because when I'd been there, I'm not sure if it was the first or the second time, and I'd been there for maybe 3 weeks, and there were just a couple of days where I saw a blue sky. The rest were cloudy, and somewhat misty. And in addition to that, there's lots and lots of fine dust coming over from the Gobi Desert, or also from factories on mainland China and other areas. So there's lots, unfortunately, there's a lot of air pollution in South Korea. And that can have an effect on insulin insensitivity. So even if the women there are super healthy, exercising, eating the right thing, watching, monitoring their glucose and their ketones and their metabolic health, and they're going to saunas, and they even take hormone therapy and whatnot, it still can be that simply because of the not so good air quality, their metabolic health is impaired. So we've had estrogen, cortisol, air quality, sleep, forget that, sleep, and we have environmental toxins beyond air quality. For example, canned foods, or tea bags, or water bottles, or even the cosmetics which we're using, many, or the paint on the walls, or the stuff in our clothes, the dye in our clothes, or the dye of our hair, or you name it. There's many toxins, there's many pollutants out there, which we are willingly, in a way, maybe not consciously, but since we're using it, since we're eating it, since we're putting that stuff on our skin, allowing to enter our bodies. And that too can have an effect on our insulin levels. So if you're you're exercising, you're doing the saunas, you have found ways how to deal with stress now in a new way, now that somehow your system is set up in a different way, but you found a way how to deal with the stress, and you played everything by the books, and you still notice something's not right. I'm still getting these inflammations. I'm still getting these hunger cravings. I'm still getting whatever it is that you're getting, or suddenly waking up in the middle of the night because of the really weird glucose drop. All these things could be, not saying that they are, but if you've done many things by the book and it's still not really providing the relief which you're looking for, then it might be worth looking into air quality, pollutants, cosmetics, the food which you're eating, how you're eating it. If you're frying lots of food, if you fry it till it's really dark, maybe not saying black, but even darkened food has the potential to increase insulin insensitivity. Or I don't know why many people are cooking with olive oil. No. I mean, love olive oil. I love olive oil, but olive oil, when it's heated, easily, much easier than many other fats, easily transform into a trans fat. And those fats are really not healthy. They're very pro-inflammatory, and it's not a good thing. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm doing something very beneficial and healthy for my body because I'm using olive oil, I'm using olive oil for cooking. No, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, it's not good for cooking. I'm not an expert on olive oil, which is specifically marked and labeled as can be used for cooking and frying. That might be a different thing, but the regular extra native olive oil, which many people have in their cupboards, don't use that for frying food. Use that afterwards for a salad dressing, or just slash or put a good dose on top of your food, but don't use it for frying. Canned food, like the lining in the cans, it's all chemicals, and many of them are even hormone, what's it called? Hormone stimulating particles like BPA. It's very closely connected how it's recognized in the body to estrogen. So the estrogen receptors might detect BPA and think, oh cool, this is estrogen, and let BPA connect to wherever it's going to connect. But BPA is not estrogen. It's not having the same message. It's not operating in the same way, and it's really not healthy. Especially the white lining. If you have a can, say kidney beans or chickpeas, and you see white lining in there, that's BPA. Not only and always, but very often. Or tea bags, even the ones which look not plasticky. Most tea bags, close to say all tea bags, have a degree of microplastics. So when you're putting tea bags into boiling hot water, you will get a good dose of your tea and you will get a good dose of microplastic. It's microplastic soup, or cups to go, or again, South Korea. When I went to some grocery stores, some grocery stores were really super stocked with veggies and fruit and meats and dairy, and they had everything which one could be dreaming about or craving. But there's also, and that was really new to me, there's also convenience stores and grocery stores where most of the stuff is packed and pre-produced. So little plastic containers with a plastic ceiling containing cooked rice, and you just put it into the microwave. So you have hot rice already cooked, put it into a plastic container, seal it up with plastic, and then put it into the microwave where more heat is put, not just on the rice, but also on the plastic. That's very likely full of microplastics. Or the ramyun packages. I love a good ramen every now and then, especially, or even more so if it's really cooked and not just the instant thing. But if you put that hot water into the bucket where it's coming in, it's plastic lined. It looks like paper, but it's plastic lined. Or even the cashier receipts, which you get at many stores, it looks like paper. It kind of feels like paper. It's not. It's thermodynamic paper, and it has BPA in it. So even just touching that receipt, you have BPA, and then you just touch your face or whatever you do, you will have BPA in your system, and maybe even just a tiny little cut in your skin. There's so many ways for all these toxins to enter our body. So insulin resistance caused by many things, and it is worthwhile to really investigate it, especially as we're entering perimenopause and beyond, because insulin resistance is not just insulin resistance. It has an effect on our health, and maybe not today specifically. I noticed that in a way, to me, it had an effect today or cyclically, because I kept having inflammations and they kept recurring, and they kept specifically recurring in special phases of my cycle where naturally, now in perimenopause, where naturally the inflammatory factors are pretty high. And I had not counteracted to decrease them and to buffer them. So I did not know about that. So I had high inflammation factors and I just kept it high. But now I know I found measures that can soothe them in a way so that those inflammatory spikes might still be there. But let's take a picture. Let's say the inflammation, like fire, the fire still bursts, but if it's bursting in a sea of water, it's bursting and then it's gone. So the inflammation will not break down and burn down everything else. So it's not simply to never again have an inflammation symptom, because inflammation per se is a really good thing. It helps to heal, it helps to send the rescue troops to wherever we might need it, whether it's in our head or in our bones. So inflammation per se is really great. It tells our body, hello, urgency, we need to repair. So that's what it's good for. But if there's inflammation where there actually should not be a repair, or isn't a repair needed, where there's more autoimmune inflammation, that's not good to have. And that can be happening during perimenopause, and it can be that we're not putting the fire into enough water to keep it stable and safe. So that was some information about why insulin levels can suddenly rise, and also just to mention that, but maybe it's just a logic which you already derived, high insulin levels cause high insulin levels, because high insulin level means that the cells cannot absorb the glucose well enough and cannot store it or utilize it as energy right away. And if the cells can't do that, if the message is not received, there will be more messages sent, so the little knock on the door will really become a hard banging and smashing. So high insulin levels also cause high insulin levels. It's a really vicious circle. In another episode, I will be speaking about where actually is insulin made. It's in the pancreas. And you might have listened to the episode about the pituitary gland, that it's the master gland, and also really mastering most of our other glands, including the pancreas. And I will be putting a spotlight on what other stuff, hormones, products are produced by that marvelous factory in the pancreas, and how that, in addition to stress on our system due to insulin insensitivity, can have an effect on our health. So continue with that in another episode, and I'm looking forward to see you there. If you found this interesting, if you found remedies how to lower your insulin insensitivity, how to become insulin sensitive again, maybe nutrition, maybe exercise, whatever it might be, please share. Please share in the comments, share with your loved ones, share with your friends, and I am looking forward to see you next time.